scroll through Facebook and Instagram, and I'm guilty of these things too, even still to this day, like you get super inspired and you get super motivated by, these people that you follow. That I think sometimes one of the things that I struggle with, and I think others do too, is if you don't take the time to define what success looks like for yourself or what it feels like, without knowing it, you're just adopting somebody else's, goal. Like, it might be the people
Yeah.
that you follow or the influencers that you follow. And like, you subconsciously start moving down this path to have what they have.
Mm.
And a lot of times that's not exactly what you want or what you need. And then you end
Mm.
up and you're still not happy. And I think that was me totally, like just chasing other people's dreams.
Hi everyone, Joy here. Today I'm interviewing Greg. Greg is a founder and CEO of AltAgency. I have to tell you guys that I actually found him via his YouTube channel because I was doing research about this season of growing and scaling your business. And I thought, wow, what an amazing fit. His knowledge was so super powerful and so super awesome. Greg's mission is to help unsatisfied agency owners or service providers and provide them abundantly for their family and time to enjoy their lives. So, that's obviously time is precious to us. And I'm an agency owner, so I completely understand that. Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me, Joy. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I really appreciate your
Absolutely.
time. Where are you from and where did you grow up? Can you tell people a little bit about you?
From New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey in the United States,
Mhm.
and the last 11 or 12 years, I think going on 12, I've lived in Denver, Colorado.
Nice. I've seen the photos of Denver. I've been in New Jersey. I went to the States a very long time ago, and it's really, really pretty. That's that side of the world. How did you get into the whole agency thing? How did that come about?
I mean, since I graduated college,
Hmm.
I worked inside of agencies, both large and small.
Hmm.
So for me, right out of college, I was in kind of a marketing and promotional agency that represented brands like Pepsi and Unilever. And then I went to kind of a smaller shop that was, working with AT&T and T and some professional sports teams. And so I kind of went back and forth between like larger and smaller agencies. And then I had essentially started my business on the side, and my last like full-time job was like on the client side. So I was working inside of the marketing team for a large independent retailer called Cabela's. They're like a large outdoor retailer in the United States. They have some stores internationally, but
Okay.
that was my last like corporate job, so to speak, full-time job before I broke out on my own in 2014.
So it's been quite a good number of years for you.
Yeah, it's still holding strong.
I've popped around on your website, and it's pretty impressive the type of clients that you guys have served so far. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how did you actually land clients like John Lee Dumas? I mean, he's like one of the
Yeah,
biggest podcasters. So how did you manage to do that?
yeah. So I mean, one, he's a friend. So we became friends really early, kind of, I mean, really before he launched or right as he was launching his podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire. So,
Mhm.
um, and at the time, my services didn't align with John or really any of the types of clients that you would have seen that we've worked with, because I did something completely different. And so, I mean, for at least a couple of years, I was just building relationships with people that inspired me and that, were kind of in this online entrepreneur, online business space
Mhm.
while I was trying to figure out what was going on and who exactly I wanted to serve.
Mhm.
And in 2015, I kind of made a big switch in my focus from the type of marketing that I had been doing in the past to
Mhm.
kind of sales funnels, marketing automation, and the the opportunity presented itself to work with people like John, like people that were building a business
Okay.
online, the very people that kind of inspired me. And so when I started working on the things that I chose to work on, sales funnels, automation, specifically at the time, I was using a software called Infusionsoft, which is
Mhm.
now Keep. a lot of the people, influencers online like him were already using that tool, and they were all frustrated and struggling utilizing it. And I fell in love with it. So I basically just said, hey, you have pain around this problem, like I can help you remove that. And we sort of became the team behind the scenes for a handful of big name podcasters, authors, speakers, those sorts of people. And that was really what allowed us to take off. So I wish I had a better answer, other than like I had just been developing relationships with those folks, at least the first wave of clients. And
Yes.
then, from there, like most agencies, in the beginning, we were very heavy referral based. We created our own content as well to build our own email list. But most of our growth came from, someone saying, hey, I heard that you did this for XYZ. Can you
Yes.
do that for me too?
Yes.
So
Do
that
you
was the genesis.
That's really good. I love that. Do you feel like you had to niche down for you to get referrals?
Um, yes. um, so we were, I don't know if this was as intentional as I would like to say that it was, but
Yeah.
when we got started, Infusionsoft, again, now Keep, was
Mhm.
kind of like the main tool that folks were using. It was that or Entreport. And a lot of people used Infusionsoft, and I didn't know how to use Entreport. So we really only served people that were using Infusionsoft or wanted to move to Infusionsoft. So people would go from like MailChimp or, Aweber to this tool. And so it made it really easy in the beginning for us to say like, hey, yeah, we can help you or we can't. Or if you're willing to move, because that's something you were planning on doing anyway, then we can totally help.
Yeah.
But it made marketing a lot easier, and it made selecting clients that we could actually serve a lot easier. And then over time, years, expanded into Active Campaign and some other things. And so now, we support still to this day like a handful of tools, but not every tool. And yeah, it definitely helped from a focal point of, there was these little communities of people that were using that tool, and our name would come up in those circles often.
That's really cool. And isn't it just amazing how you don't actually plan it, but you just naturally grow into something that people want? It's
Yeah.
it's a good circle, actually.
Yeah. I think, my biggest lesson that, like I said, before we were doing this in 2015 for over a year and a half,
Hmm.
and what I had started on the side was really mobile marketing, like text message marketing, mobile apps. That was my experience for the better part of a decade.
Wow.
And I got to the point where, one of the things that I share with a lot of our clients is,
Hmm.
I think with whether it's a service or a skill that, maybe someone in the audience has,
Hmm.
we get really hung up on, as the service provider, like the tools we use or um, the solution that we have. Like we fall so in love with the solution as being this answer,
Hmm.
when really we need to be falling in love with the person that has that specific problem. Like when I realized like, hey, these online entrepreneurs, like what problem do they have with Infusionsoft? Like it sort of started opening up opportunities that
Yeah.
like how I serve them was a lot easier than I need someone that is looking for this specific service. Because not in all instances, not most people didn't even know that they needed our help and or were looking for that, that tactical solution.
Mm.
So if you're like kind of in love with your own sauce, I think you need to kind of redirect that focus on just, falling in love with the problem that your ideal prospect has. And that'll lead you naturally to solving the problems that they care about and find
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah, that is really, really great advice because, as entrepreneurs, and I think not even agency owners, but in general, you do fall in love with your software and what you use, and you kind of stick with it and you don't look outside of the box. But there's tools that market themselves really well, and not because they are that great, but just because they do
Mhm.
the marketing so well. And then
Yeah.
there's other ones that's really great just because their marketing doesn't is not that great. It doesn't mean it's not a great tool. And I've seen that happen so many times. It's really
Yeah. And
cool.
what's actually kind of interesting is, the people that get really hung up on their own solution,
Mm.
I find that those are the ones that typically end up um, being treated as like a commodity, and
So true.
or uh, being pulled in and having like maybe your agency or you're a freelancer, and you
Mm,
feel like you're just like an employee of
yeah.
your five different clients
Mm,
businesses. um, that usually becomes a product of like you've focused so much internally on the skill and the
yeah.
solution that you had versus being of service and solving more valuable problems for this person that that is your ideal client.
Mm, so true, so true. Where do you sit on the spectrum of your avatar and really understanding and niching down on your avatar? Is that something that you guys focus on in your business, or was it a focus point before as well?
Yeah. I mean, so with our agency, I mean, in the beginning, it was, online entrepreneurs using Infusionsoft.
Mm,
And then, over the years, it's evolved and we rebranded the beginning of last year to
mhm,
AltAgency. And we went from serving kind of the course creator, influencer to other service providers, agency owners, consultants, et cetera, because the number of people that were asking me how we packaged our services and like escaped the whole done for you model
mhm.
was just getting louder and louder and louder, and like those were my people. It's like I wanted to help them
Yeah.
get out of the pain that I was feeling. And so you know the it's not I wouldn't call it necessarily the coach who coaches coaches, right? But I mean, it sort of is. Like, we were the agency, we were stuck, we got out of being stuck, and there's other people that want to get out of that same thing.
Mm,
And we just kind of put together a roadmap that's been really successful, and that's what we walk our clients through.
okay.
So being narrow in focus,
Mm,
really, I think, really helpful, especially when it comes to growth.
mhm.
A lot of times freelancers, service providers, agencies, they'll serve just about anybody.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is what creates a lot of the problems that prevent them from growing. That's in and of itself like creating the problem that they're stuck in fulfillment.
Mm,
Because if every client you serve needs something different, you're never going to gain efficiencies in getting your client results. So like you're kind of always starting from scratch. And
yes.
that becomes really difficult to systematize and difficult to automate and difficult to, once even systematize referrals. And, if you do get referrals, it's because a client really loved working with you, but the referrals probably aren't even that great either, because what the person they referred to you doesn't need exactly what your past client wanted.
Yeah.
And so the sooner that you can like say, hey, this is who we serve
Mhm,
and here's the solution that we have for them,
mhm.
uh, I mean, we see everybody take off.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, really important to stay focused.
Yes. I completely get that. I used to be one of those agency owners that served anybody and everybody, and then you would build a funnel for this guy, and it will take you an hour because you're used to this type of customer, and then you would build something for somebody completely different, and it takes you like
Yeah,
2-3 days because you have to really figure out their clients and their niche and all of those things, and then you end up getting paid less because your hourly rate is so much less because you work so many hours. What
exactly.
one of the things on your website, or obviously on your mission statement, is that you guys want to, basically help your agency owners to enjoy life. Is that something that you struggled with, like time
Yeah.
management? And
Yeah. I mean, I was the person that was, the story that I tell often is, for years, the
Mhm,
last year and a half has not been exactly the same because of COVID. But um, so I live, like I said, in Colorado. My family
mhm,
still lives in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. And every
mhm,
year they would rent a house down the shore in New Jersey. And
mhm,
so my wife, we would go and spend, the week with them. And it was the year when we were going there and we had just found out that we were pregnant, or she was pregnant with our now first child.
yeah,
And like I remember, like we were on the beach, like we told my whole family. It was like this joyous moment, and like literally, like I'm sitting there looking at my watch, like I got to go back to get this client call. Like when is this thing? Like when is like the celebration going to stop? temporarily so that I can kind of jet and go back. And like, that was just the story of my vacations, right? It was, I'd still work.
Yeah.
Everything was tied to me. And, my wife basically said, hey, like, when is this not going to be an issue? Like,
Yeah.
when are we going to be able to go on a vacation and like actually be together?
Mm.
And because like we're about to have a kid and like I can't do this alone. So that was really,
Yeah.
that was one of the, like the pivotal moments of just like, all right, something's got to change. Something's got to change here. Um, but yeah, I think it's super easy to scroll through Facebook and Instagram, and I'm guilty of these things too, even still to this day. Like, you get super inspired and you get super motivated by these people that you follow. That I think sometimes one of the things that I struggle with, and I think others do too, is if you don't take the time to define what success looks like for yourself or what it feels like, without knowing it, you're just adopting somebody else's, goal. Like, it might be the people
Yep.
that you follow or the influencers that you follow. And like, you subconsciously start moving down this path to have what they have.
Mm.
And a lot of times that's not exactly what you want or what you need. And then you end
Mm.
up and you're still not happy. And I think that was me totally, like just chasing other people's dreams. And just because it it's actually easier to do that than it is to have the hard conversations and spend time for yourself thinking about what you really want,
Yeah.
um, and getting clear on that. And so uh, it just turned into like this constant grind. And it's why I forget who has the quote, but it's like you kind of feel like you're losing this race that you didn't even know you entered into the race in the first place. It's like you feel like you're losing this thing and like you don't even know how you got in the race in the first place. It's just like all of a sudden you're just in it, you know? And that was miserable. So I think, having to kind of pull back and
Mm.
refocus on, what I wanted,
Yes.
was also really pivotal. And honestly, that happened. We took off in like 2017, and in 2018, like mid 2018, I kind of had that moment where I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I kind of
Mhm.
felt like I was burned out,
Mm.
and I had to like reorient myself again, um,
Wow.
and then kind of rebuild based on my own terms.
Yes. How did you do that? What was your first step that you took to rebuild everything? Because
Yeah.
that's a massive, like, I'm listening to you say that and I'm kind of like, oh, how did you do that? It sounds so stressful.
Yeah, I mean, it took time, but so I think one of the first exercises that I did,
Mhm.
well, I'm very thankful to have some awesome team members, and one team member that I'd had with me from the beginning, you know, just kind of approached me and just said, "Look, like, in order for us to kind of take this thing to the next level, like,
Mhm.
you need to tell us where we're going,
Yes.
so that we can help you get there and that everything's not on you." And
Yes.
so I needed to better communicate the vision of what this company would look like,
Mm.
moving forward. And so, she asked me a lot of questions that I just wrote down, and I just answered a bunch of them, over the next couple months about, what does success mean? What does
Mhm.
it look like? What does it feel like? Like, how much money do you want to make? What sort of things do you want? How big do you want your team? um, you know what do you want your clients to be like? All these, I mean, it was a lot.
Wow.
And I would answer some, and then I'd share my feedback with her, and then she'd challenge me to go a little bit deeper. So one, it was just kind of digging deep into those
Yeah.
areas, but it all kind of started with this like high level. I think it's really easy to kind of arbitrarily, and again, if you're adopting someone else's goal, like,
Mhm.
we're really good at setting targets. Like, hey, I want to build a 7-figure business, right? Like, probably a lot of people listening are like, I want to have a 7-figure business.
True.
But so they have this target, but they don't get real, like really real and raw and honest with their current reality. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that was me because like I knew that I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account, so I didn't want to look. So I didn't. And so like when you start to neglect things like that, like, what did your marriage look like? What did your relationship with your kids look like? Your health, like all these things, like you have to get real
Mm.
and kind of put in the facts of like where things are at now,
Mhm.
so that you can actually put together a plan that's realistic and
Mm.
executable to get to that goal.
Yes.
Because if you just have the target and you're not real with where you're at, I mean, this is where I see just people kind of operating in this fantasy land. And it's like they kind of
So
pull
true.
these little highlights from what they see other people doing. They're like, oh, I need 25K a month, or like, I need this course, or I need these things. It's like, it's kind of just these ideas that are floating
Mm.
out in the ether that aren't anchored to anything because they haven't kind of gotten real with where they're actually at now. Like, hey, with where you're at now, you might be nowhere close to launching a course. Like, you might have to go have clients for a little bit. And like, that's going to be the next 6 to 12 months. And then maybe we're in a position to so with some of that. And that's why I think some people just sort of flounder for a while, because
Mm.
they're like, they have this vision, but there's no real step-by-step plan to get there, because they
Mhm.
just haven't gotten real with where they're currently at. And
Yes.
again, because it's usually not pretty
Yes.
and info that you don't
Reality.
really want to be reminded of. But if anything, that should serve as motivation
Yes.
to get you out of that spot.
Yes. Yeah. You see, I've got hashtag goals behind me. There's a
Yeah.
reason, because I coached small businesses for a wee while. I've moved out of the one-on-one coaching because it's just a time factor for me. But
Good for you.
I did that because exactly what you were saying, because it's like, I want to make $20,000 this month. I'm like, that's a fantastic goal, but what's your action steps to get there? And a
Yeah.
lot of the time people had no idea. They just want
Yeah.
to make this thing, but there's no daily steps, there's no weekly steps, there's no month, there's nothing to actually focus on. Say, okay, this is what I'm going to do today to gonna get me there. Do you have like an action step or a bit of a roadmap that you do to set goals that you can share with the audience?
So how do we set goals? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, there's kind of two ways that I look at goals. I mean, like, I
Okay.
look at kind of my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year
Hmm.
kind of big picture goals.
Yes.
As you get further out, I think they're a little bit blurrier.
Hmm.
But from like inside the business, every single quarter we go through like a self assessment of,
Okay.
we look at our lead generation,
Hmm.
our lead nurture, our sales, our fulfillment, and our like upgrades, retention, resell, upsell. And we say,
Yes.
like, what's the biggest bottleneck? Like, which one's the current bottleneck? Oh,
Okay.
it's lead nurture.
Yes.
Okay, so let's let's figure out how we can fix lead nurture for the next
Yes.
90 days. And so then
Yes.
we'll kind of come up with, I'm sure some people have heard the term OKRs, objectives and key results.
Yes.
We'll come up with like 1 to 2 objectives with
Hmm.
some key results to
Hmm.
make lead nurture
Hmm.
not a bottleneck anymore in the next
Hmm.
90 days. And then
Hmm.
we get to the 90 days and we say, hey, okay, it went from being a bottleneck to being a strength.
Yes.
Like, what's the bottleneck now? Oh, it's fulfillment. We've been adding so many more new clients that like fulfillment's starting to break, or we need more help in fulfillment. It's like, okay, what are the objectives? What are the key
Hmm.
results to fix fulfillment? How are we going to measure that 90 days from now? And so
Yes.
that's kind of how we focus. It's how we help our clients kind of put together game plans as well.
Yes.
Um, but I do think like just so that's like, I think more tactical, like inside the business
Hmm.
quarterly, but we definitely look at, like, how many clients do we want to serve this year? And,
Yeah.
if we sell at this price point, like, what does the revenue look like? And, what do I want my day to day look like? And all of those things, I think, to go off the hashtag goals, I think one of the biggest things that COVID made us do, or at least pay more attention to,
Hmm.
was, like, I feel like goals without constraints are really, really useless. Because like, you could probably, most people listening could probably build a 7 figure business way faster than they probably thought they could,
That's
but
very true.
likely with making a lot of sacrifices that they're probably not willing to make. Like work 24/7, like,
Mm.
don't have any friends, like, don't go out, like, don't part, like, all these things that,
Mm.
some people are willing to sacrifice. And those are the
Yes.
people that, you can't compare yourself to, because they're
Exactly.
willing to sacrifice things that you are not. So there's
Exactly.
no point in comparing.
Mm.
And so I think understanding like, what are your goals, but then more importantly, like, what are your constraints to get there? So like, for example, when, COVID happened, a lot of people went into like having to deal with their kids being home. Now we didn't thankfully have to deal with like legit homeschooling, because our kids are too young. They're still in like daycare.
Yes.
But, we had temporary daycare, and like it wasn't full time like it normally was. So we had to rework the schedule. And so Greg couldn't work on Fridays, like, because my schedule was more flexible. So my wife, she watched the kids on her day off, which was Wednesday, and Greg took Fridays off, and like he was with the kids. And so like I had to figure out how to hit our goals with a 4-day work week.
Yes.
And how do I manage my team with 4 days? And so like because of that constraint, we got even more focused on like, okay, well, you don't have enough time to do all of these things. So like, what's the one thing that you're going to focus on? Because you only have like 8 hours of production time a week after all your meetings and all the other stuff. So
Yes.
like either we push out the deadlines or we just focus on fewer things. And so I think, now every time we create goals, we'll just add constraints. Like, for example, hey, we want to hire this new person, but we don't want Greg process. So like, how do we bring on this key role without Greg being involved at all? Like Greg doesn't interview them. Like, so who on the team is stepping up? Right.
Yes.
And so that was, then we have to solve that problem. And
Yes.
that allows us to put together, some key action items that allow us to hit these goals.
Yes. I love that. Because yes. Do you set SMART goals? Is that one of the things that you guys also maybe did in the past? Or I've heard a lot about it, but I don't set goals specifically necessarily in that sense. So, for me, it's a bit of a different process, I guess.
Yeah, we've never really, I think conceptually, yes, but we haven't like created a goal and said, walked through that whole SMART system.
Yes. Yeah.
Was it specific, measurable?
Yeah.
I forget what the A is. Time-based.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that kind of OKR objectives kind of process fleshes out a lot of that stuff for you.
That's true.
But yeah, conceptually, yes, I think goals need to be actionable, time-based, specific, etc.
Yes. One of the things that I always ask people when they're on my interview, whether sometimes it's after the interview, sometimes it's in the interview, is that how do you structure your day? Because I've interviewed quite a lot of entrepreneurs now. And one of the very key factors that I've noticed about successful entrepreneurs, that sets successful entrepreneurs apart from other entrepreneurs that's, still on that journey to become successful, is that they have a really amazing routine. What's your routine looking like every day?
Yeah. My morning routine is pretty dialed in. My evening routine is like, I still play with it. So we have this exercise that we do, and we do with our clients. We call it the perfect week. Perfect kind of with quotes in that, like, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but like we're trying to design it to be perfect.
Yes.
And so at least every 90 days, or in most cases seasonally, the way I organize my week changes. School, no school. When I wake up, I've gotten a lot better with like waking up and working out when it's still dark. But like historically that was a problem for me. So, like when it was, sometimes it would be better for me to have my workouts in the afternoon. And then sometimes of the year, it made sense for me to do them in the morning. And so I'd shift based, and then again with school, obviously COVID, I switched it a lot frequently. We had our second child this past year. So like my schedule changed again, so like I think there are life situations that require you to adapt.
Be flexible.
But fundamentally my morning routine, I'm usually awake before 5:15 a.m. Every day, not minus one day. One day I just kind of let myself just wake up naturally. Usually that's still like 6 at the latest, but I'm up by 5:15. I meditate for 5 minutes. Then I journal. Then I read at least 10 minutes. Then I leave a note of gratitude for my wife. Then I will, on the days that I work out. On the days that I don't work out, I actually jump into like my one of my most important tasks of the day,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that my kids haven't woken up yet. So my son
Yes.
apparently is following my lead and waking up really early too. So sometimes I'm not getting to that, but I've
Yes.
found that if I don't kind of meditate and kind of take that moment of kind of quiet time,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm just like way more irritable. Like I find that I'm like sometimes I'm super short and mean with the team. And so it's just kind of like it kind of brings me, it like grounds me.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I forget where the quote came from, but someone said like win the morning, win the day, and
Yes.
so um, the days where I actually knock out a significant amount of work in the morning are like the
Mm-hmm.
best days, like when my son will sleep till 7:30. I'll get a solid 90 minutes of work in. From like 6 to 7:30, and I've
Yeah.
already, worked out, read, did all those other things,
Mm.
and gotten, made a huge dent in the most important thing. Because as we've grown personally, we're at a team of 10 now. There's a lot more chaos in my day of like, oh,
Okay.
someone on the team needs this, or they need that, or I need to schedule this meeting.
Mm.
So I don't get as much time during the week to like crush big projects. I have a
Yes.
few, like I have a few key blocks in there. But yeah, that's kind of been the consistent morning routine.
Yes.
And like I said, I've for the most part been taking Fridays off. At the
Yeah.
very least, I've been taking like half day Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since March of last year.
Yeah. It's good to have that though, especially if your kids are young, to spend the time with them, because they miss out on your time. And that goes back to your mission statement. We actually enjoy the life with your family, because that's really what it's
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it's cool when my son wakes up, well, sometimes it's frustrating, but like when, I'm up at 5:15 and then he's up at 6, and he sees me working out early or sees me reading, and,
Yeah.
I'll have him, I'll stop and read him a book for a minute, so we get some good quality time in the morning. But I'll answer it because it usually comes up. I go to bed early. So it's not like I sleep, like I don't sleep.
Yes.
My wife and I are usually in bed, like in a sleep 8:30, 9:30
Wow.
most night.
Wow. Wow.
That'll obviously, for all the people that like have kids that are older
Yeah.
and like, are like, oh, you have no idea. I'm sure I have no idea, but we'll have to just adapt at some point. So, but yeah, right now, I mean, I'm usually going to bed at the latest like 9:30. So I'm still getting, usually 7.5 hours of sleep,
Mm, mm.
even when I'm waking up early.
Yes. And it's important to have the sleep, because else you're just grumpy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need
I'm very
that.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest struggle in your journey in the last, since 2014? What has been your biggest struggle?
Since 2014.
Or we can narrow it down the last few years.
I mean, I think overall the whole journey, if I had known that entrepreneurship was going to be such a life lesson and or
Mhm.
the best education you can have on personal development, um, I mean, I would have been like, if someone told me that back then, I would have been like, what? I don't get it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's the constant up leveling of yourself, your mindset. I mean,
Mhm.
like staying strong, through the ups and the downs,
Mhm.
I think has been the biggest challenge. I mean, even
Mhm.
now, like if I had to like give you a more specific answer, like the last 6 to 12 months, um, all of that ties into it. But I mean, leadership. So
Yes.
like I said, that we have the team. February of last year, we had 3 people, and it's February this year, and we're in the process of hiring our 11th.
Wow.
So like we've hired a
That's
lot of
growth.
people, and so our team has grown,
Mm.
which has required me to be a much better
Yes.
leader.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to figure that out,
Mhm.
and that's a new area of focus for me.
Mhm.
So that's been my challenge, is kind of leading people.
Yes. I'm going to make the assumption that you're a good leader, Greg, because you have a team and it looks like, what you guys are doing and your lifestyle that you live. I can just assume that, you've got no problem with leadership. Am I wrong when I say that? Like, I don't know, you just look like a really good leader. And I
Oh,
spoke
well,
to your
thanks.
PA, Amanda, so many times back and forth arranging this interview. And she just seems like she really, like she's amazing. And you can't get people that amazing working for you if you're not a good leader. So,
Yeah, I think, uh, thank you. Um, I think I'm getting better.
yeah.
I think a key piece of leadership and something that we do have right,
Mm,
despite me being where I want to be or not as a
mm,
leader, I think we have really good like team culture,
okay.
which obviously starts with me. But we are a fully remote team, so um, the values that we kind of operate by and all of that kind of bleeds through the company. And so I think that is more so why we have good people. And again, I think I'm getting better. I probably wouldn't put myself in the worst category, but I have, for us to hit the goals that we have, I need
Mm,
to kind of grow a lot more in
yes.
that area.
Mm,
A great quote from um, one of my former, or I'll call him mentor, one of my former coaches. His name is Brad Martineau. He said, "Your business will never exceed your own capacity as an entrepreneur." And so, like,
mm,
to me, like, if this is my capacity and like my, capability, like I need
mhm.
to keep up leveling this so that the business can
That's true.
go with it. Like, you're never going to see your business like do better in all these areas if you're not capable of those things.
Mm,
And so that's kind of back to that, personal development and leadership. Like, I need to kind of continue to improve in those areas to like make room for the company and everybody else in the company to up level as well.
yes. Yeah, because you can't outgrow anything in your business. Well, your business can't outgrow you. You have to grow with the journey, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. How can people get in touch with you? Is there any way that you can help them? What services do you provide for agency owners, etc.?
Yeah. So we have a couple different programs that we focus on.
Mm-hmm,
The kind of flagship program is called Foundations, and in
mm-hmm,
Foundations we help. Thank you for letting me share. In Foundations, we kind of work with agencies that are stuck doing done for you, and they want to add on a new revenue stream that is more leverage, whether that's a productized service or coaching and consulting.
mm-hmm,
So we help them kind of specialize in their expertise and have an offer that they can take to the marketplace and
mm-hmm,
get their first wave of clients
mm-hmm,
in 90 days. So that's what we focus on for the most part. I'd say like the best place, like if you're enjoying this conversation as a listener, um, check out my YouTube channel, gregsvideos.com. We'll link you there.
mm-hmm,
There's hundreds of videos. We release a new video every Wednesday. You'll get a feel for what we talk about. If you
mm-hmm,
watch 5, 10 of those videos and you're like, wow, that was amazing. There's links in the bottom of every single one of those videos to schedule a call with my team um, to explore how we might be able to help you. So I'd say like, if you want to get more of this type of content, our YouTube channel, hundreds of free videos there. And then we also have a free Facebook group for agency owners,
mm-hmm,
altagency.com/group.
mm-hmm.
Um, where we do a live training every single Wednesday and just share, insights and stuff inside, of a Facebook group with just other people like you. So you'll be able to connect with me through either of those ways very easily.
Yes. And I strongly recommend to please check out Craig's YouTube channel because I even mentioned in the beginning of this video, that's how I met him. And it is
Yeah.
really, the knowledge on those videos is so, so amazing. So I strongly
Thank you.
recommend you guys get onto those. At the end of the podcast episode, I always ask one question because the audience of this podcast is also, some of them are people that are struggling in their business, they're stuck, or they're really sitting on the fence, they haven't started yet. So it's kind of a mix. And then obviously we've got all kinds of people
Mhm.
listening. But what advice would you give to somebody if they are stuck in the business or they're sitting on a fence and they really don't know how to get to that next step? What advice would you give them?
Um, I mean, get help. Uh, find someone that is where you want to be,
Hmm.
or has the skills that you want to have.
Hmm.
If you're super early, I don't know if it's necessary that they have the exact life that you want yet. But, you know, finding someone that is a handful of steps ahead of you and has gotten there, and
Mhm.
honestly, just pay them to help you.
Yeah.
Whether that's a coaching program or a consultant or whatever, a course. I've found that the fastest way is just to shortcut everything by just getting the help from the person who is where I want to be.
Yes.
And
So true.
based on your budget or wherever, what your situation looks like,
Mm.
some of you, will buy a course. Some of you will, um, you know, do what I did and put it on a credit card and like bet on yourself. I've done that multiple times, but you'll never go wrong investing in yourself,
Mm.
period.
Yes.
So I would say just find that person that like, and trust, and kind of is where you want to be, at
Mhm.
least for as far as you can see, and
Mhm.
see how you could potentially get involved with them. The free option, I would just read as many books as you can. I mean, like some of the education that I've gotten, through books, do both. I mean, and you can do both. It's not like it's either or. I mean, I read a book, I
Yes.
read a little bit every single day.
Mhm.
And, a lot of how I run my business, um, my beliefs, all these things, my education comes from these books.
Mm.
So, in many ways, these can all be your mentors.
Mm.
But the fast track is definitely just pay the person who's already there and follow their plan, because you'll get there faster.
Completely agree with you. I was one of those people that took me years to get a coach, and then when I finally did, it's like, ah, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's one of the most scary things for sure. I tell clients, there's you know when you make that investment in yourself, especially if it's the first one, and
mhm.
actually it's not even just the first one. It's the first one, or it's the next biggest one that you've ever made.
Mm.
And you're going to be a little bit excited and a little bit scared.
Yes.
And I always say, like, you kind of have to have both of them, because if you are only excited and you're not
Mm.
like nervous or scared about it not working
Mm.
or the uncertainty,
Mm.
you're probably not taking the situation seriously enough.
Yes.
But then if you're only scared and you're not at all excited for like the upside or the possibility of the outcome,
Mm.
then you're probably just not ready.
Yes.
And so, like, if you kind of like feel like you're being pulled between like, I'm scared, but I'm also super excited, that's usually the best mix to have. Like, if like you're talking to a coach or whatever, and you're like, that's what you feel, it's
Yeah.
probably a really good sign that it's like something that you should be at least heavily considering,
Yes.
because like you kind of need to be, put in that position where maybe your back's not 100% against the wall, but
Mm.
like there's some pressure, right? And you
Yes.
want to make sure that you get your money back, or that investment was the right investment. And so, to me, that's just how you bet on and gamble on yourself.
Mhm.
Which again, in more cases, probably all cases,
Yes.
is going to be the best place that you can make any investment,
Yes.
especially early on in your business.
That's very good advice. Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
giving me the time to be on this episode. We will pop all Greg's links on the bottom. And again, go check out his YouTube channel. It's really awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate your time, and you must have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cheers.